In the weeks after Pearl Harbor, the United States was not only wounded, it was silent. Battleships burned in shallow water. Aircraft lay twisted on runways. Across the country, Americans waited for news that never seemed to come. There was anger, fear, and something worse, doubt. Japan had struck deep, and for the first time in generations, Americans wondered if their homeland was truly safe. Behind closed doors, military leaders faced a brutal reality. The United States was not ready for a full counteroffensive. Ships needed repair, pilots needed training, industry needed time. But time was something the nation could not publicly ask for. What America needed was not a victory. Not yet. It needed a message. And that message would have to be carried by men who understood they might never return. The man who accepted the unacceptable James Harold Doolittle understood risk better than most men alive. He was not just a pilot, but an engineer, a test flyer, a pioneer of modern aviation. He had spent his life pushing aircraft beyond what manuals claimed was possible. He trusted numbers, but he trusted courage just as much. When planners proposed launching Army bombers from a Navy aircraft carrier, Doolittle did not laugh. He listened. He understood immediately what others hesitated to say out loud. This mission was not designed to succeed. It was designed to matter. When asked if it could be done, Doolittle answered honestly, yes, but not without losses. He accepted command without conditions. Volunteers for a one-way mission. The men who volunteered were told the truth. They would take off from a carrier, something no B-25 had ever done in combat. They would strike Japan. They would not return to the ship. Their only hope was to reach China, running on fuel margin so thin that any error meant death. No rescue plan existed. No guarantees were offered. Still, every crew stepped forward. These were not reckless men. They were professionals who understood exactly what was being asked of them, and accepted it anyway. Training on the edge of failure. Training was relentless. Pilots practiced takeoffs on runways. Barely longer than the carrier deck, bombers were stripped of unnecessary weight. Fuel calculations were adjusted again and again. Knowing they were still optimistic, every takeoff rehearsal ended the same way, silence, because everyone understood that when the real moment came, there would be no second attempt. Doolittle trained beside his men. He did not separate himself. He flew the same aircraft, accepted the same risk, and shared the same uncertainty. That mattered more than speeches ever could. Crossing the Pacific in April 1942, the USS Hornet sailed west, carrying 16 bombers hidden beneath tops. The crews lived in confined spaces, surrounded by sailors who knew something unusual was happening, but not what, as the days passed. Tension grew. Then, disaster. A Japanese picket boat spotted the task force hundreds of miles earlier than planned. Radio silence was broken. The element of surprise was gone. Fuel calculations collapsed instantly. Abort was the logical choice. Doolittle looked at the numbers, the distance, and the faces of the men who had already committed themselves. He gave the order. They would launch now, taking off before the world was ready. The ocean was rough. The carrier deck pitched violently. The bombers were heavier than they had ever been. One by one, the aircraft rolled forward. Some barely cleared the bow. Some dipped toward the water before climbing. Every man watching understood how close failure had come. When Doolittle's plane lifted off, there was no applause, only relief. There was no turning back. Japan, unprepared. Hours later, Japanese cities came into view, factories, rail yards, Military installations, the crews flew low, avoiding detection until the last moment, when the bombs fell. The shock was immediate. Sirens screamed across Tokyo. Civilians ran. Soldiers stared upward in disbelief. American bombers over Japan. The physical damage was limited, but the psychological damage was catastrophic. The Japanese homeland had been touched. The war had come home. The most dangerous part, Begin's escape, was never guaranteed. Fuel ran out faster than expected. Storms closed in. Darkness swallowed the aircraft one by one. Some crews bailed out blindly. Some crash-landed. Some were injured on impact. 8 airmen were captured. 3 were executed after brutal interrogations. 1 died from starvation and abuse. Chinese civilians who helped the Americans paid an unthinkable price. As Japanese forces retaliated with massacres and scorched earth campaigns, this was the hidden cost of the raid, paid by people who never volunteered. Doolittle's quiet judgment. When Doolittle reached safety, he believed the mission had failed. Aircraft lost, men captured, damage minimal. He expected disgrace, possibly a court-martial. Instead, he was called home. America did not see failure. It saw defiance. The Medal of Honor was awarded not for destruction, but for leadership under impossible odds. Doolittle accepted it quietly, while the raid truly changed everything. Strategically, the raid forced Japan to reconsider its defenses. Resources were diverted. Command decisions shifted. Confidence cracked. Psychologically, the effect was enormous. American morale surged. Japanese leadership grew cautious within months. Those altered decisions would echo at Midway, where the balance of the Pacific War would finally begin to turn. James Doolittle never claimed the raid won the war. He understood something deeper. Wars are not only won by firepower, they are won when a nation remembers who it is. And on that April morning in 1942, that is exactly what happened.